Well, hello everybody and welcome to Up Front. On today's episode, we have a fantastic conversation planned for you all about a brand new event that's coming to our beautiful city on September the 17th. With us today is Vanessa Purdy and Dean Thullner from SHINE2022. Welcome guys, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic and so delighted to have you here.
Well, thanks for having us here.
It's our privilege for sure. Dean, this is a passion for you. You started this program some years back, probably close to 10 years now.
Yes.
And really have raised an extraordinary amount of money to help mental health and addictions, among other things. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you started and why you started such an extraordinary event?
Well, Shine is a very personal journey for me. During the late 80s, when I was around 29 years old, 28, 29, I was diagnosed HIV positive. It led to a trajectory of mental health issues for me, addiction, suicide, dealing with the stigma of being HIV positive during that time. Eventually it led to a diagnosis of a few months and then a few days left to live. And I was in the hospital and I noticed that there were so many people that were rallying around. But one of the things that I noticed was that besides the medical health departments and all the surgeons and doctors and researchers that were trying to get the programs and the funding and the support, it was the community that I watched together. I have this memory of being in St. Paul's and looking down Davie Street in Vancouver and watching a group of people walking down with placards that said, "Act Up." And I noticed that these people were there to support the people that were dying of AIDS. So luckily for me, St. Paul's Hospital's IDC came up with a cocktail, so everyone who's HIV positive now will live their life expectancy. But I made this promise to myself that I would continue to rally the community together to support things that people looked at that had stigmas.
Well, and I was in the 80s and I remember the stigma that went with HIV positive people and what an extraordinary long period of time it was before there was a sense of comfort about people surviving it. So in your desire to give back, I'm really astounded by how many people have come forward and have helped you along the way. But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce Vanessa because Vanessa is now a part of SHINE22. How did you guys connect?
Dean and I met kind of by accident.
Yeah.
I think in 2019. I was on the board for the Nanaimo Pride Society and I was tasked with being the lead organizer for the Pride Parade. And they said, there's this Dean guy that moved to town. He's got some experience throwing festivals and different things. And so we got teamed up on the parade and we worked on the parade and it worked so good. And then afterwards we kind of were like saying our goodbye and like we had a hug and Dean says, well, we're still gonna be friends, right?
Exactly, right?
And I was like, yeah, I think so. And then he introduced me to his company, Volume Studio, and he started telling me about Shine and said that he would be interested in having me on board, and I couldn't say no to something like that.
Yeah, and really I don't blame you because it's just such an extraordinary event, and now's the time we get to really deep dive into what that event is going to be because I'm so excited. There's so much wonderful stuff happening on that day. So tell us, what have you done? What are we doing here? What is this all about?
Well, firstly, the history of Shine has brought in over $5 million for at-risk youth.
Yes.
We've been able to open clinics for kids. We've been able to open beds in hospitals.
Yeah.
And really, it's on the backside of the community. Shine is for the community, but it's produced by the community. I always say the Volume team, we're like the Pied Pipers, and we just kind of rally all this talent. But Shine is a platform for artistic members of the community to give back on their own terms in the spirit of giving back. Shine is coming to Nanaimo for its inaugural year. We have over 150 local actors, dancers, singers, drag queens, musicians, supported by Nanaimo's top hairdressers, makeup artists, retailers, designers, volunteers. It's going to be an absolutely spectacular night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dubbing it the social event of the season.
Yes,
I mean,
so.
we've all, let's face it, we've all been kind of locked in the last while, right? Getting dressed up, having the opportunity to watch such an extraordinary event and participate and dance the night away on top of it. Have you got your dancing shoes yet?
Yes, I do.
I knew you would. I knew you would. So how and where is this money going to? What is all of this going to happen for us? Because you said it was the inaugural year, and you said that you've raised over $5 million in Vancouver and other areas, right? So how is that? What does that maybe look like for us here in Nanaimo?
So our main beneficiary this year is AVI Community Health Center, and we chose to link up with them because they provide such a vast selection of community services. They provide counseling, they provide PrEP, they provide harm reduction supplies, safer sex supplies. They have a men's wellness program. They are out in the streets, like handing out juice boxes, and
fantastic.
Like they're right there on the forefront of the situation.
And the good news is we're actually going to talk to them very shortly because they're guests on our program today as well. So we look forward to highlighting that. But there's another organization too, right?
There is, yes. And that is an organization that I'm particularly fond of. It is called the FLOW program, which is the Family Learning Outreach and Wellness program, and it's put on through the Nanaimo and Ladysmith Public Schools.
Oh, wonderful. Very cool. So not only is it going to be the show that we cannot even imagine, you have to go, you have to see it. I've already bought 2 gowns for this. I'm not kidding you. Full sequin. I'm bringing out my own drag queen. I cannot wait to do that. I think it's really exciting for us all to come together and for such a worthy cause. I just want to tune in for one more second about, the purpose and the meaning behind this for our community, because the volunteers, there is nobody's getting any money for this, are they?
There is not one person
penny
on the volume team that gets paid. There isn't one entertainer, one volunteer. This is all nonprofit.
Completely.
Kathy, 1 in 5 Canadians experience mental health issues in their life, and nearly every single one of us, through a colleague, a friend, a co-worker, an acquaintance, will recognize or be impacted by someone with mental health. And when I look at the amount of youth on our streets in Nanaimo that are there because they have been traumatized, neglected, abused, the system has failed for them, they may have underlying mental health issues, they may be neurodiverse, but we have to, as a community, not only stand up to raise funds, but we have to really work on the stigma around mental health.
I couldn't agree with you more. Mental health is really, I think, the crux of so much that's going on with our community, where we're finding there's that homelessness side of things. There's there's just so much that's beyond the scope of what today's program will allow us to go into. But this is one step moving us forward to get us out of this stigma and to push us and propel us into doing something really quite grand. And I understand we've got some terrific support as well by some of our leaders, right?
Yes.
Who's coming to the event?
Well, we've got quite a great amount of corporate sponsors as well. We've got TD Bank, Save On Foods, West Coast Beauty. A lot of car dealerships in town, Honda, Hyundai, they're coming in droves. As this show gains momentum, more and more people want to support it. We're really, really honored with that. We love it.
It's really terrific. And I believe that our mayor is going to make an appearance as well.
The mayor is there.
I know, Leonard. Thank you, Leonard. We're very grateful you're coming. And I also believe that Sheila Malcolmson has confirmed that she will be joining the team as well.
Yeah, she'll be speaking that night. And the chamber, Nanaimo Chamber is going to be there. And as well, a lot of the doctors from NRGH that deal on the foreground for mental health will be there. So we're looking at a packed house. We've already sold 550 seats at tables. We've got 160 people in the cast. We've got 50 volunteers. We're going to sell out, no problem.
So, but we don't want to limit people to not want to come to this, because you can still get tickets, right? First of all, how do people get tickets right now? I mean, because truly, we don't want anybody to hold back. Like, if you can get a ticket, get it now.
Well, you better get a ticket sooner than later.
That's right.
But
call to action.
Yes, but you can get tickets if you go to our website at www.togetherweshine.ca.
Fantastic.
And there's an Eventbrite link, and you can buy it right off the site.
There's one more thing, though, that's really important. And I know maybe I'm dragging this a little bit, but I just think it's really important. So I know that for the amount of show that there's a lot of people that may not be able to attend simply because there may not be any tickets. So obviously we're urging. But that doesn't mean that we can't use the money, right? Like, if people want to sponsor the program in some way, if they want to bring, put some gifts up for auction, if they want to do any of those things, there's still quite a bit of time for people to participate in that way and to donate to this very important cause.
We are still looking for some volunteers for Night Of. So
Fantastic.
I know it's hard for a lot of people. We're all coming out of this pandemic at the same time, and our pockets are a little light. So money is not just the only way that you can help us out. You can show up and volunteer with us Night Of. We're still looking for a handful of models. hint, hint, folks. And we're not looking for models that have professional training. We're looking for everyday community members that feel that this initiative is worthy.
To shine a spotlight on mental health.
Exactly.
Yes, but there's also something I want to bring to the table to this. There's a lot of people in our community that are unseen, and that has a lot to do with the trans community that are really now, they're not really coming out yet in the way that we'd love to celebrate them. Mm-hmm. These would be perfect models. If you are a member of the community and you are trans and you're wanting to come and strut your stuff on the catwalk, this is a great opportunity to do that, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, but there's also the flip side. There's a disproportionate amount of youth that are LGBTQ2+ plus that are on the streets.
So true.
And they've fallen through the cracks. And I want everyone to understand that Shine is a platform for everyone to express themselves. So and Volume Studio Production and the Shine platform is rooted in diversity, inclusion, and acceptance. And we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome at this event.
And everyone will be welcome at the event for sure, right? Mm-hmm. Is there anything left that we need to share with the community? I'm just thinking.
Well, if you want to sponsor the event or donate to the event, again, go to www.togetherweshine.ca and you can contact us directly on the website.
I'm so glad that you two came today. Thank you so much for being on Upfront. What a wonderful opportunity to share something with this community. Together, I know we can raise a lot of money for this community and for mental health and addiction. So thanks for joining us today. Coming up next, we're going to explore this topic just a little bit more. Our plan is to talk to the people from AVI and the Flow program. And so when we come back, we're going to have a conversation with AVI. Welcome back. Super glad you're still with us. We are really breaking open Shine 2022. This is fantastic. And our next guest is Jeremy Mailloux from AVI. Jeremy, welcome to the program. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Kathy.
It's really a privilege. Listen, I know that your involvement with Shine 2022 is really a pivotal part of the entire program, where the money is going to or a lot of the money is going to your organization. But I think that a lot of people really aren't sure about what AVI is now or how it's changed over the years. How about if you break it open for us?
I'd love to, Kathy. We have a crazy amount of services that we offer these days. We originally started way back in the 80s, the late 80s, as a phone line for information about HIV and about the crisis at that time. We have turned into a place that offers primary care for people with HIV and hepatitis C. We offer full addiction services. We have a men's wellness program where we work around people in the LGBTQ community. We have prevention, all kinds of interventions. We've added a bunch of counselors to our staff to work around any of these issues. We have people working on homelessness.
Wow.
We just launched an outreach team last year, so we're working in the downtown core, offering nutrition and harm reduction, and then hopefully pulling people into care down at the clinic. And we launched primary care this year in 2022. So we're offering primary care with a prioritization for marginalized people.
Oh, I'm so glad. We really need primary care in our community for sure. And when we talk about marginalized people, I think that, there's a bit of a misconception about what it used to be when people were talking about, men dying of AIDS, youth dying of AIDS. But we're not seeing that in the same way anymore, are we? Now we're seeing a real challenge when it comes to mental health and addictions that are coming really from everyone, from all over our communities, right?
Sure, Kathy. One of the reasons why we're called the AVI now versus AIDS Vancouver Island, which was our launch name, is because the struggle has changed a little bit. We're working with a lot more information now, and we work around a lot more issues than just a phone line and information line. So, for instance, the addictions work that we do around hepatitis C and HIV prevention, it doesn't work unless we're also doing other supports. So we've expanded pretty madly there.
I want to talk about the hepatitis, I can't even say the word hepatitis C for a moment, because there's a misconception as well. A lot of people actually end up with hepatitis C, sometimes from traveling, sometimes from other areas. With the epidemic of COVID, was there an increase in all of the services from everywhere, or was there a reduction? How did COVID play into mental health and addictions and other diseases that perhaps you've served in the past?
It's almost like it created its own concurrent crisis at the same time.
Right.
AVI was able to keep our doors open entirely through COVID, so we never stopped doing harm reduction, we never stopped seeing clients. We did do some work around telehealth. I actually started during COVID as an educator, so doing public speaking roles right at the beginning of Zoom. What it actually did is created a little bit more of a necessity because so many organizations had to close their doors or weren't able to manage their way through. And the people that were impacted the most by COVID are marginalized folks. The reality is they bore way more of the burden than lots of folks in the community. So what it's done is actually taken what was an emergency and really turned up the priority.
Indeed, and I can see how the marginalized population has really, there already was a lax in services. There was already, a lot of gaps in the system. And so how is AVI able to educate the community? In what way are you educating them? Are you going into the schools? Are you, what does all that look like?
So we have an education team, and we work in the jails, we work in the high schools, we work with community organizations, service providers, doing things from HIV training or destigmatization training, all the way through to naloxone training for people that want to do it in their businesses. One of our programs right now in the downtown core, we've approached almost every business available and offered naloxone training so that they can change the culture if they don't like it in the community, right?
Yes. And are you seeing a change in the community and their acceptance level and supporting what's going on instead of shunning, which was, unfortunately part of the stigmatism that has gone with a lot of mental health and addictions? Has that started to see some new light since, of course, we've all been placed into quarantine? We've all had to learn what it must feel like to be isolated, to be removed from community. Are you noticing something that's happening there with your programming?
We have had a lot more volunteers come out of the woodwork.
Oh, wow.
But the reality is when things get tough, it's not always easy to be the best person that you can be. So there are a lot of challenges out there in the community right now and a lot of things that, we could be spending money on. But this is a really important one. We can change the fabric of our community just by putting, a little bit of focus on things and using the compassionate choice.
Yeah. We talk a lot these days about diversity and equity and inclusion. What does that mean to AVI in a practical term?
Really what it means is removing any barriers. Right. So if it's about getting somebody in the door, it really doesn't matter what marginalized community they might be part of. The important thing is that they're not able to access services, and we remove whatever barriers stop them, whether that means homelessness or they're a member of the LGBTQ community and are unable to access directly. It's about meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. And I think that meeting people at where they're at is arguably the most compassionate, empathetic thing a person can do, and to put that judgment and to bury it. We don't need to judge people. We need to be present and hold space for everyone, right?
Stigma is really real, and it does exist still. Things like a health crisis really brought some of us back to the original AIDS pandemic because we saw sort of similarities and parallels between COVID and how we would other people in our community or how we treated each other around things like masks or disagreements on public health. It's important that we all come together and that we work together to make a change because it doesn't have to be the way it is.
Well, I agree with you, and I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, we're out of time in this part of our conversation, although I wish we were, because there's so many more questions that I have for you. I will ask you this question. How can people do their best to support you? What does that look like to you?
Have a conversation with somebody close by you. Destigmatize and make it part of the daily conversation. Compassion has to be the center of everything that we do.
Absolutely. It's been a privilege to talk with you today. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Next up on Upfront, we have another guest, the Flow program, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. I can't tell you how important it is to work with young people in our community. And when we have people like the two people that we're going to talk to next about incredible programs that have been created for mental health and youth and addictions and all that other kind of stuff combined, then we've got something really fantastic in our hands. And so Karina Strong is our guest today, and so is Sheri Martin. Welcome to the program, you guys. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
So let's get upfront, right? Let's get upfront about this. What does it look like to be in this part of a program? I know that there's so many community partners that get involved with something like this. Tell us how you got involved.
Mental wellness has always been a passion of mine.
Yeah.
I've worked with so many children and families, and when somebody in the family is struggling, everybody struggles.
So true.
So it's so important that we create opportunities for families to succeed. And that's why we named it Family Learning Opportunities for Wellness, because it's not just the student that needs to work with their mental health challenges, but it's the families that need to support them as well, and they need support knowing how to support their students. So
important, and
Yeah.
it's really true that not any two children learn the same, and it does take the whole family to work together to make things like this work. What brought you to this kind of work as well?
Back in my first career was in social work. I did my degree and worked in the social work field in a variety of jobs for many years. When I was off having my children, I ended up going into the arts instead of going back to social work, and I ran actually a local circus company here in Nanaimo called Vesta Entertainment.
Cool.
And we still dabble with that. If you see stilters out there, we used to do some fire dancing. So I did that for 10 years with my family, and now my kids are sort of taking that over. And about 6 years ago, I went into teaching and got my teaching degree. So I always knew that I would be doing some sort of alternative teaching alt program, but not knowing exactly what that would look like. And I was so fortunate to get to work with Sheri and to develop the flow program to where it is today. It's been a dream come true for me.
Well, I love when careers sort of mold and they shift and they change, but they always land you exactly where you need to be, and especially in support of young people, to get that connection. I spent a number of years in teaching, and I remember so often where students would be struggling and they really needed a different way of learning. I understand that the flow program sort of has some really creative ways of bridging young people to be able to work with them where they're at. Is it possible to explore some of that? How do the children respond, or young people respond? I guess they're not really children if they're in the high school system, are they? Or are they all ages?
No, the flow program takes kids in grade 9 to 12.
Okay.
We only have 12 spots, and it's a one semester program.
I see.
So we work on we sort of affectionately call it like the mental health boot camp. All the students are working with community partners already, so they've got counselors through Child and Youth Mental Health, and they really, there's a screening process to see if they're ready for the opportunity that we're presenting them.
Yeah, one of the large things is that making sure that we get the right 12 kids in, because having them engaged in everything that we're doing is so important, because if one person isn't ready and reluctant, it can really impact how others are feeling. And so we need to make sure that all 12 kids are really invested. So we do a really careful screening process and making sure that we take internalizers versus externalizers, because an externalizer could also throw off the group as well. And so choosing those internalizing kids that really feel their pain on the inside. And so we offer a variety of ways of being able to engage them. We've been so lucky to have Karina come on as a teacher. As she talked about her circus background, she brings that to life in the classroom with her stage presence and the way she engages and draws the kids in. But also, one of the curriculum that kids still have to meet nowadays is they have to meet the PE requirement. And for so many kids, those competitive sports just do not bring out the best in them. So through her circus background, she's able to offer a variety of opportunities for kids to get active and engage and thrive.
I love the thriving part, because I think that all young people deserve to be taught on their own terms, so that they can understand what the material is and how that material can actually propel them into other things in their life, and to have a role model like yourself to be able to help lift and elevate those kids. It to me is a privilege just to even know that we have community members that are able to do that right now. I'm curious what the passion is for you. Like, I know we're talking Shine 2022. There's a whole lot of, some great stuff that you do already
naturally within your classroom, but actually that we're going to showcase. And so I'm curious about how you got involved with Shine, and what draws you to bring that strength to your kids every day.
Yeah, so Dean reached out to us actually. We were nominated by a community member, someone who was involved with the program, a parent. And it's just such an honor to be recognized by the community for the work that we do, because we are really helping people change their lives, for the better.
And we see these really vulnerable kids come in and needing an opportunity to really shine. And so it's so appropriately named that this event is Shine, because so many kids that come to us still feel marginalized in the LGBTQ group. And so they need to know that there is a place, there is a belonging for them, and that they can go on and have opportunity with no limits. And it's really exciting to see them take these opportunities and how far they can go with them.
Well, thank you both for being with us today on Upfront. I am just so delighted that we got to share this time together. It's true, together we shine, and we shine because everyone who's participating in this fantastic event on September the 17th is coming with their very best selves on their own terms. So make sure you watch for it, help us if you can, and enjoy watching other Upfront episodes. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll see you next time.